In Greek mythology, a recurring theme stands out: the myriad punishments inflicted by the gods. In some instances, those on the receiving end rightfully earned their retribution, while in others, they fell victim to mere coincidence or an untimely divine decision. What consistently captivates is the sheer creativity and, on numerous occasions, the brutality of these punishments. Let's delve into some of these tales and explore the stories of the unfortunate individuals who endured them. Prometheus, one of the most powerful and cunning titans, enjoyed challenging the gods without fear. In one notable instance, he deceived Zeus, the king of the gods, by presenting a sacrificial ox divided into two parts. On one platter, he placed the succulent meat concealed beneath the ox's intestines, while on the other, he arranged the bones covered with flavorful fat. Prometheus allowed Zeus to choose which portion the gods would consume, with Zeus selecting the plate adorned with fat. Enraged upon discovering his choice of bones, Zeus punished humanity by depriving them of fire. Unsatisfied with this punishment, Prometheus took it upon himself to reclaim fire. He stole it from Helios, the god of the sun, and delivered it back to humanity hidden within a fennel stalk, a fitting vessel for its return, as it burned slowly. Zeus sought further vengeance, commissioning Hephaestus, the god of the forge, to sculpt a woman from clay named Pandora. Bestowing life upon Pandora, Zeus dispatched her to the household of Prometheus's brother, Epimetheus, where a sealed jar containing various afflictions, such as sorrow, poverty, and diseases, awaited. Pandora and Epimetheus married, and she eventually succumbed to curiosity, opening the jar as Zeus had foretold. This act unleashed a torrent of miseries upon the world, though Pandora managed to close it, trapping hope inside. Zeus did not overlook Prometheus's transgressions. He bound Prometheus to a colossal rock, where each day an eagle, the symbol of Zeus, would visit to feast on his liver. Each night, Prometheus's liver regenerated, perpetuating his endless torment. The Greeks believed that emotions resided within the liver, explaining the eagle's relentless targeting of this organ. Erysichthon, a king of Thessaly, was notorious for his profound contempt for the gods, refusing to offer them any sacrifices. His downfall began when, in order to build a magnificent roof for his banquet hall, he decided to cut down a sacred tree that was part of an ancestral sanctuary of the goddess Demeter, the highest representative of agriculture and harvest. The dryads, nymphs dwelling within the trees, swiftly alerted Demeter to the sacrilege. Appearing before Erysichthon, Demeter implored him to spare the tree, but he not only refused, but also threatened the goddess with the very axe poised to fell the majestic tree. Enraged by his defiance, Demeter called upon Limos, the deity of hunger, to enact vengeance. Limos reached Erysichthon and touched his belly, causing his hunger to become insatiable. No matter how much he ate, his hunger only intensified. Erysichthon resorted to selling all his possessions for food, even offering his daughter Mestra in exchange. Yet, nothing could satiate his ravenous appetite. Reduced to a beggar surviving on filth, Erysichthon's torment reached its climax when he consumed himself, ending his suffering in a gruesome manner. Atlas, one of the most important and powerful titans, fathered numerous nymphs, including the Pleiades and the Hyades, whom Zeus transformed into stars bearing the same names. He was also the father of the Hesperides, guardians of a magnificent garden where golden apples blossomed. Atlas played a prominent role in the Titanomachy, the epic war pitting his lineage against the Olympian gods led by Zeus. Following a grueling 10-year conflict, the Olympians emerged victorious, chaining the defeated Titans and consigning them to Tartarus, the deepest abyss of the underworld reserved for the vilest souls. Yet, Zeus imposed the harshest punishment upon Atlas, condemning him to bear the weight of the heavens upon his shoulders for eternity. In an alternate version of the myth where Atlas was a king, his fate diverged significantly. The hero Perseus, infuriated by Atlas's lack of hospitality, presented him with the severed head of Medusa, a monster whose gaze turned onlookers to stone. Consequently, Atlas himself was petrified, transforming into the great Atlas mountain range that spans the northern reaches of the African continent. Legend has it that the goddess Athena, while playing her aulos, a double flute, looked in a mirror and noticed how the instrument made her cheeks puff up, rendering her appearance ridiculous. Angered, she discarded the aulos, cursing it so that its next finder would meet a gruesome end. This ill-fated individual was Marsyas, a satyr, a type of male nymph, endowed with unmatched musical talent. Marsyas, inflated by his considerable ego, boldly challenged Apollo to a musical duel, with the stipulation that the victor could do as they pleased with the loser. The contest initially appeared evenly matched, but Apollo shifted the odds in his favor by adding his vocal performance to the lyre's melody. Marsyas objected, insisting that their agreement was for an instrumental competition. However, Apollo retorted that Marsyas's act of blowing into his flute was akin to singing. The Muses, serving as judges, sided with Apollo, declaring him the victor. As punishment for his temerity, Apollo ordered that Marsyas be flayed. Tantalus, a son of Zeus and the Oceanid Pluto, reigned as king of Mount Sipylus. Favored by the gods, he was often invited to their feasts. However, he betrayed their trust by stealing nectar and ambrosia and divulging divine secrets to his mortal friends, learned during these celestial gatherings. The malevolence of Tantalus escalated when he committed a heinous act. He murdered and dismembered his son Pelops, offering him as a dish at a banquet for the gods. The deities immediately recognized the atrocity and refrained from partaking in the meal, except for Demeter. Distracted by the grief over her daughter Persephone's abduction, she consumed a piece of Pelops' shoulder. By Zeus's command, Pelops was miraculously restored to life, his missing shoulder replaced with an ivory one crafted by Hephaestus, the god of the forge and fire. Pelops was thus revived, more splendid and vigorous than before. For his vile deeds, Tantalus was subjected to one of the most grievous punishments, banished to the depths of Tartarus. There, he stood in a lake, water rising to his knees, yet each time he bent to drink, the waters would withdraw. Similarly, when he reached for fruit from an overhanging tree to satiate his hunger, it would elude his grasp. Above him, a massive stone dangled ominously. This eternal torment of unattainable sustenance and the constant threat of crushing doom was Tantalus's punishment for his unforgivable actions. Ixion, a king of Thessaly, sought to marry Dia, the beautiful daughter of Dioneus. In pursuit of her hand, Ixion promised Dioneus a lavish gift. Yet, when Ixion reneged on his promise, Dioneus seized Ixion's valuable mares as compensation. Bitter, Ixion plotted a cruel revenge. He lured Dioneus to a banquet under the guise of settling his debt, only to murder him by casting him into a pit filled with burning coals. This terrible act, a grave violation of the sacred laws of hospitality revered by the ancient Greeks, led to Ixion's ostracization by neighboring kings, rendering him a pariah. Tormented by his resultant solitude, Ixion sought Zeus's compassion. Zeus, taking pity on him, purified Ixion and welcomed him to dine with the gods. However, Ixion, far from grateful, attempted to seduce Hera, Zeus's wife. Infuriated, Hera informed Zeus, who then devised a trap for Ixion by sending him a cloud fashioned in Hera's likeness to test his intentions. Ixion was deceived, engaging with the cloud and fathering the first centaur, a creature with the upper body of a human and the lower body of a horse. Zeus, incensed by Ixion's temerity but initially reluctant to mete out a death sentence, pondering if the ambrosia at the banquet had intoxicated Ixion, chose banishment instead. However, upon hearing Ixion boast of seducing Hera, Zeus's patience evaporated. He struck Ixion down with a lightning bolt and condemned him to Tartarus. There, under Hermes' execution, Ixion was bound with snakes to a fiery wheel, doomed to spin eternally. Legend holds that Ixion experienced a brief respite from his suffering when Orpheus ventured into the underworld to retrieve Eurydice. Orpheus's lyre playing, of unparalleled beauty, momentarily halted the torments of Tartarus, offering Ixion a fleeting moment of peace.
Sísifo fue el fundador y primer rey de Éfira, hoy en día conocida como Corinto. Destacaba por su gran astucia, que utilizó incansablemente para engañar a los dioses y tratar de escapar a su destino. Las dificultades comenzaron para Sísifo cuando vio a Zeus raptar a la ninfa Egina. En un principio, Sísifo guardó el secreto, pero cambió de parecer muy pronto cuando se encontró con el dios fluvial Asopo, el padre de Egina, y vio que podía sacar provecho. Sísifo, a cambio de que el dios fluvial hiciese pasar un río por su reino, le reveló que el captor de su hija había sido Zeus. Enfurecido, el todopoderoso Zeus dio orden a Tánatos, la muerte, de que tomase a Sísifo y lo encadenase en el Tártaro. Al encontrarse con Tánatos, Sísifo audazmente le dijo que tenía curiosidad por comprender cómo funcionaban sus cadenas. Cuando Tánatos se lo mostró, Sísifo aprovechó la oportunidad y encadenó a la muerte. De esta manera, Sísifo escapó por primera vez a su destino. Sin embargo, al quedar Tánatos atrapado, nadie podía morir en la tierra, lo que causó gran enfado en Ares, el dios de la guerra, ya que dejó de encontrar disfrute en batallar constantemente si sus enemigos no podían morir. Así pues, fue Ares el que se ocupó de liberar a Tánatos para que las muertes pudiesen volver a sucederse. Sísifo fue llevado de nuevo al inframundo, pero ya había urdido una nueva estratagema, al decirle a su mujer que no realizase sacrificio alguno por su muerte, como era preceptivo. En el inframundo, Sísifo se quejó a Hades, el dios allí gobernante, de que su mujer no estaba cumpliendo con sus obligaciones al no realizar sacrificios por su muerte, y convenció a Hades para que le dejase volver al mundo de los vivos para pedir explicaciones a su esposa. Por supuesto, Sísifo no volvió voluntariamente al inframundo, y consiguió alcanzar la vejez en el reino de los vivos. Sin embargo, eventualmente llegó su hora, y fue conducido de nuevo al inframundo por los dioses. Esta vez ya no pudo escapar, y fue forzado a cumplir el terrible castigo que se le había reservado. Sísifo fue condenado a empujar una enorme piedra cuesta arriba por una empinada ladera, pero cada vez que se encontraba a punto de alcanzar la cima, la piedra rodaba ladera abajo, teniendo que comenzar el pesado trabajo una y otra vez hasta la eternidad.
The beautiful Cassandra, daughter of Priam and Hecuba, the rulers of Troy, counted among her brothers Hector and Paris, the latter notorious for instigating the Trojan War by absconding with Helen, the queen of Sparta. Cassandra became a priestess, attracting the fervent admiration of Apollo, the god of the arts, who became infatuated with her. Desiring to win Cassandra's affections, Apollo offered her the gift of foresight in exchange for her love. She accepted his offer, gaining the prophetic ability, but later spurned Apollo's advances. Enraged by her rejection, Apollo cursed Cassandra, decreeing that her prophecies would forever go unheeded, rendering her foresight futile. Cassandra prophesied the impending downfall of Troy, yet her forewarnings fell on deaf ears. She also foresaw the treachery concealed within the Greeks' offering, a colossal wooden horse. But her dire predictions were dismissed. She even tried to set fire to the famous horse herself, but her fellow citizens prevented it, calling her crazy. During the sack of Troy, Ajax the Lesser encountered Cassandra in the temple of the goddess Athena and subjected her to assault. Incensed by this sacrilege, Athena, aided by Poseidon, god of the sea, unleashed a tempest upon Ajax's ship, causing it to founder and leading to his demise. Following the war's conclusion, Cassandra was given into the custody of King Agamemnon of Mycenae. Unbeknownst to Agamemnon, his wife Clytemnestra had taken a lover during his prolonged absence. Upon their return to Mycenae, Clytemnestra enticed Agamemnon to walk upon a purple carpet, a sacrilege in the eyes of the gods, as Cassandra fervently warned. Ignoring her pleas, Agamemnon met his tragic fate, along with Cassandra, at the hands of Clytemnestra and her paramour. Minthe, also known as Minthe, was a naiad, a nymph associated with bodies of water, specifically linked to the Cocytus River, one of the waterways coursing through the Greek underworld. Legend holds that those unable to afford Charon's fee, the ferryman who transported the deceased across the Actaeon River, were condemned to wander the riverbanks and its tributaries, such as the Cocytus, until Charon relented after 100 years. Minthe was enamored with Hades, the god of the underworld, until he abandoned her upon meeting Persephone, the captivating daughter of Demeter, the goddess of agriculture. Distraught and embittered, Minthe brazenly boasted to Demeter of her superiority in beauty over Persephone, predicting Hades's eventual disillusionment with Persephone. Enraged by Minthe's impudence, Demeter obliterated her by trampling her underfoot. From the spot where Minthe perished, the mint plant blossomed forth. Actaeon, renowned for his exceptional prowess as a hunter, was groomed in the art from a young age by the centaur Chiron, famed as the mentor of Achilles, one of Greece's foremost heroes. On what would be his fateful final day, Actaeon ventured into the forest for a hunt. There, his gaze chanced upon Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, wild animals and chastity, bathing naked in a secluded lake. Captivated by her divine beauty, Actaeon found himself unable to avert his eyes, alerting Artemis to his presence. In retribution for his audacity and to safeguard her modesty, Artemis silenced Actaeon, warning that any attempt to speak would result in his transformation into a deer. Moments later, Actaeon heard the baying of his hunting hounds and instinctively cried out in response, inadvertently sealing his fate. In an instant, he metamorphosed into a stag. His loyal pack, comprising 50 fierce beasts, detected the unfamiliar presence of the deer and ruthlessly set upon it, tearing Actaeon apart and consuming him, oblivious to the fact that their quarry was their own master. A subsequent legend recounts that Actaeon's grieving hounds roamed in perpetual sorrow, searching for their lost master. To assuage their anguish, Chiron, Actaeon's centaur mentor, fashioned a flawless replica of the hunter, calming the distraught dogs in its presence. These have been some of the most notable punishments in the captivating realm of Greek mythology, where the gods exhibited not only benevolence and compassion, but also their darker inclinations through the most severe acts.